September 17, 1944. The skies over the Netherlands were filled with the thunder of engines, hundreds of Allied planes flying in tight formation. Below them lay the flat fields and canals of Holland. Inside the planes, thousands of paratroopers, Americans, British, and Polish, sat in silence, gripping their rifles, hearts pounding. They were about to jump into one of the most daring and disastrous operations of World War II. The mission: capture a series of bridges across the Netherlands, push into Germany, and end the war by Christmas. It was called Operation Market Garden, and it would become known as the Bridge Too Far. By late 1944, the Allies were winning. France had been liberated, Paris was free, and the German army was retreating toward its own borders, but victory still seemed far away. The Allied advance had slowed. Supply lines stretched thin. The ports were still in German hands. Then came a bold idea from British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery. He believed one powerful strike through the Netherlands could break the German defenses and bring the war to an end in months instead of years. His plan combined airborne assault and armored breakthrough, something no one had ever attempted on such a scale. It had two parts: Market, an airborne operation using 35,000 paratroopers to seize key bridges behind enemy lines, and Garden, a ground offensive led by British tanks that would link up with them and drive straight into Germany. If it worked, the Allies would cross the Rhine, bypass the Siegfried Line, and strike at the heart of the Reich. If it failed, the entire northern flank of the Allied army would be left exposed. The target was a chain of bridges, each vital to reach the next: Eindhoven, Nijmegen, and finally Arnhem, the last bridge over the Rhine. Hold them all for just 2 days, and the war might be over. But the plan relied on perfect timing and perfect weather. Sunday, September 17, 1944, at 10 a.m., the sky filled with parachutes. It was the largest airborne drop in history. Over 2,000 aircraft, gliders, and transport planes. Civilians in Dutch towns waved and cheered, believing liberation had arrived. The 101st Airborne Division landed near Eindhoven, tasked with capturing the southern bridges. The 82nd Airborne dropped around Nijmegen to secure the middle crossings, and far to the north, the British 1st Airborne Division, led by Major General Roy Urquhart, dropped near Arnhem, the final bridge. They had to hold it until reinforcements arrived, in just 2 days. At first, everything seemed to go to plan. The 101st captured their bridges quickly. The 82nd fought fiercely, but managed to secure most of theirs. But at Arnhem, things went wrong immediately. The drop zones were miles from the bridge. Radio equipment failed. Units became scattered. And worst of all, the intelligence was wrong. The Allies believed Arnhem was defended by old men and reserve troops. In reality, 2 elite SS Panzer divisions were resting there, the 9th and 10th. The British paratroopers had landed in the Lion's Den. Still, they fought their way toward the city. A single battalion, about 700 men led by Lieutenant Colonel John Frost, reached the northern end of the Arnhem Bridge. They dug in among the houses overlooking the span, waiting for the tanks that would never come. For the next 3 days, Frost's men held their position against overwhelming odds. German tanks rolled through the streets, snipers fired from rooftops, buildings collapsed under shell fire. Supplies ran out, ammunition dwindled, but the British held on, hour after hour, street by street. A German officer later said, They fought like lions, but lions without food or ammunition. Meanwhile, the ground advance, Operation Garden, was crawling north. The British Essex Corps, led by General Brian Horrocks, was supposed to race 60 miles up a single narrow road, nicknamed Hell's Highway. But the road was clogged with destroyed vehicles and ambushed convoys. German paratroopers, hidden in the woods, blew up bridges and attacked the column again and again. Progress slowed to a crawl, 1 mile per hour. By the time they reached Nijmegen, the battle there was raging. At Nijmegen, the 82nd Airborne faced the most dangerous mission of their lives, crossing the Waal River under heavy fire to seize the bridge. They used small canvas boats, paddling against the current as machine guns tore through the water around them. Many never made it across. But those who did stormed the far bank and captured the bridge in one of the most heroic assaults of the war. By then, though, it was too late for Arnhem. On the morning of September 21st, Frost's men were surrounded. Half were dead or wounded. Flames consumed the buildings around them. Still, they refused to surrender. When German troops finally captured the ruins, they found only a handful of survivors, exhausted, bleeding, and defiant. The rest of the British 1st Airborne, trapped west of Arnhem, tried to break through, but the river was impassable, and the promised reinforcements never came. Operation Market Garden had failed. Of the 10,000 British paratroopers who landed near Arnhem, fewer than 2,000 made it back. The rest were killed, wounded, or captured. The Dutch people, who had greeted their liberators with flowers, now faced another winter of occupation, the Hunger Winter, one of the darkest periods of the war. In the days after, Eisenhower's staff tried to soften the defeat. They called it a partial success, but Montgomery still believed his plan had been sound, just 90% successful. To the men who fought and died there, it was something else entirely, a bridge too far. The failure of Market Garden delayed the Allied advance by months. Instead of ending the war by Christmas 1944, it would drag on until May 1945, through the bitter winter of the Ardennes and the Battle of the Bulge. But even in defeat, Market Garden left behind stories of unimaginable bravery. Paratroopers who held their ground against tanks, engineers who built bridges under fire, Dutch civilians who sheltered wounded soldiers, knowing they'd be executed if caught. One survivor of Arnhem said years later, "We didn't lose our courage, only our luck." Today, the bridges still stand. At Arnhem, the rebuilt span bears a new name: John Frost Bridge. Each year, veterans and locals gather to lay flowers and remember. They don't talk about defeat, they talk about courage. Because Market Garden wasn't just a story of failure, it was a story of daring, of men who reached for the impossible, who risked everything to bring freedom a little closer. In the end, perhaps that's what a bridge too far really means, not a failure of soldiers, but a failure of hubris, a reminder that even the boldest plans can crumble under the weight of reality, and that victory, like freedom, is never guaranteed. Operation Market Garden, The Bridge Too Far. A story of hope, heartbreak, and heroism, etched forever in the rivers and fields of Holland.